combination of valuable things such as income, wealth, and other goods. If there is an obligation to pursue distributive equality, does it apply only within particular state or globally? Friends, we will have all these answers and other informations also from our guest speaker today, Justice Roshan Dalvi. Hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Meeta, introduce her.
Yes. Now let me introduce our guest speaker, Justice Roshan Dalvi. Justice Roshan Dalvi, the retired judge of Bombay High Court, has been in legal fraternity for 44 years. She was appointed judge at Bombay High Court, and Civil and Session Court in 1989. She served as principal judge in Family Court, Mumbai. In 2005, she was elevated in Bombay High Court as judge. She retired on November 2015. Justice Dalvi studied gender and law in Warwick University, London. She was invited to give lectures on gender equality in various organizations, the Protocol of Rights of Children, Sexual Abuse at different United Nations, that is the United Nations Office of Drug Control, in short UNODC. She was granted a fellowship in peace and conflict resolution, and as such, she is a Rotary Peace Fellow. She authored a book, Tangible, Glimpses of a Judicial Life. Besides, she adjudicated a number of widely reported significant cases during her career, including, we all know, the dispute between the children of Chief General Leader Kalpataran. He conducts workshops for judges, lawyers, law students, law teachers on gender sensitization, arbitration, mediation, human rights, etc. She now practices as arbitrator and legal consultant. So over to Justice Dalvi. Thank you, Justice Dalvi.
Yes.
Be with us.
Let's all mute ourselves. There's too much of noise coming.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Before Dr. Dalvi starting, I request all the friends here that if you have any questions, please put it in your chat box, and after the speech, those will be dealt.
Good evening, friends. Now, I'm speaking to a very elitist crowd today. You are university graduates. You are doing so much for women. And it doesn't lie in my mouth to really tell you or lecture to you about what are women's rights. What I want to tell you is that there are so many facets of gender perspectives in our society and in our laws. And these various perspectives have always amazed me. And I think it will amaze you also. And in fact, I'm writing another book, which is absolutely complete. It has gone in print now on this very topic, gender perspectives. Now, I will like to tell you some of these perspectives and leave to you to be amazed or inspired by the women or for the women. Now, 100 years ago, Edgar Hoover, who was the chief of the FBI, at that time he said that the women's liberation movement, which started in 1920, was a national security threat. 100 years from then, in 2020, the women celebrated the centenary of that celebration. And we know where they have gone and how far they can still go. Now with this, I begin. And I tell you that when we have fast forwarded this century and we have come to 2020, and now 2021, we have certain males who feel they are at the receiving end. And that is really the reward. Now, 19th November is International Men's Day. I would have thought that 8th of March became the International Women's Day because no day was Women's Day. But men had all the days, and yet they want one day to themselves. And I think we should grant them that because there are several associations of men whom we must acknowledge are doing a lot of work for women. Under the United Nations Aegis, we have He for She movement. This is a movement where men actually take up cudgels on behalf of women. They say that domestic violence and other crimes against women are unacceptable and intolerable, and they work towards a better and a more peaceful society. In India, we have Mabao. Can you hear me, please? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay, because I couldn't see myself on
Yes,
the
yes.
second page.
We have
Okay.
muted ourselves. We have all muted ourselves. Please
Okay.
remove. Please stop your videos, please.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so Mawao is Men Against Violence Against Women. And we take some of their members who are very dedicated workers for our workshops also, so that so many men can understand the plight of women through the mouth of men. Now, having come here, what we see is that there are so many different perspectives in different sectors. And I'll tell you about the financial sector now. You know that in 2007, there was a big recession in America. The share prices fell, Wall Street was not doing well, all the other economies also fell. And they've started researching on what was the cause. And they found that the financial analysts were invariably men. And these men think in a particular way. They never had women financial analysts at the Wall Street where they could have had other perspectives. Now, women will put education, health, peace before war, conflicts, and other international ramifications. But this was not thought of. And the investments that they made in various corporations were one-sided. So then they have a group called Groupthink. And in Groupthink, they have now come out with the conclusion that in any sector, men and women must work together. Now, if we see our ancient culture, we were working together. If we read even Ramayana and Mahabharata, there are sections meant for women who tell us morals of those stories. One is how Sita sacrificed everything for Ram, how Sita underwent the test of fire. Even then, the epic is called Ramayana and not Sitayan. Today, there is one author, one dramatist, who has made a drama called Sitayan. In Mahabharata, we know what happened to Draupadi. But in Ramayana, we also know about Urmila. Urmila was the wife of Lakshman. Lakshman went out well with his brother. But who talks about Urmila, who sacrificed her entire youth and 14 years of her youth without her husband? Now, when her husband returned, her maid told her to put some flowers in her hair. That was the makeup of that age. She didn't have lipsticks and rouge. She had flowers. She said, now my age is past. I don't want to put flowers. And she didn't put them. And when Lakshman came, she went at his feet because she was his wife. Lakshman took her in his arms and said that was her place. So you see, we have got all these stories from ancient times which show us the gender perspectives. And then somewhere we went wrong. We got the laws of Manu. And Manu said that a woman deserves no liberty. She has to work first for her father, then for her husband, and then for her son. And work all right, but all the laws were devoid of anything like rights for women. When Macaulay came to India and he had to draft the first Indian Penal Code, which set out various laws, rather various offenses to make up the criminal law, he found that the culture of India, especially to women, was very awful. There were child marriages, cradle marriages, no widow remarriages, no abortions, no miscarriages for women, crimes against women, trafficking in women, and even abandonment of child, which is what we call today as infanticide, femicide, even feticide. And he gave several sections in the IPC for the first time after a lot of centuries of male domination to make women come on par and to have them as equal citizens. But it was not to be until our constitution, which gave the women equal rights. And I don't want to go into the law because I know we are coming from various fields in this session. And I want to talk about the perspectives on law. Now let us see in our society what happens. There was a very interesting case of eye camps. Now we all know that there are certain eye camps where old people get their cataract operations done free of cost. A very laudable initiative. But when the women workers, when the women scientists, I would say, researched on this aspect, they found that there were a lot of old women in these camps, but not old men. So in the beginning, they were very happy and thrilled that this initiative is really for women. But then they found out why it was so. And when they interviewed certain people, they found out that if a man has an old father and an old mother or grandfather and grandmother, and of course, if he is very well placed and if he can have surgery for all of them, it's fine. But if not, he chooses his father over his mother. Why? His father is a retired man. He doesn't work. He reads newspapers, he watches the TV, he talks to the neighbors. He needs his eyes. But what does his mother do? She lights the kitchen lamp. She doesn't need eyes, he thinks. And there is no need to spend for her surgery. So if there are these camps where she can go free, he allows her to go to get her cataracts removed. These are the perspectives in our society which tell us about our culture, about our thinking. And when we come across all of these and we learn to think, we learn to evolve. I'll give you many other examples. One was the nuclear treaty between America and India, which was signed by President Bush and Manmohan Singh, our Prime Minister. But before it was signed, there was a lot of public debate. And everything that went into the debate talked about Fukushima and Chernobyl and whether it is going to be safe for India and all of those things. Nobody spoke of women. But one women's organization said that if we have this nuclear treaty and if we have more nuclear and thermal power, we will have more electrification of our villages. And our girl children who are not going to school will be able to go to school because they will not go into the woods to collect firewood. They will not be molested in the woods when they are in school. Nobody had thought of that. Luckily, we had this treaty. We have got a lot of electrification and so many of our villages are yet unelectrified. Then we have got this thing of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. A very shallow approach. It is only a one-sided approach. Yes, of course, there should be girls' education. The Women's Graduates, Graduate Women's International does so much for girls' education over the years. And I've found that in this pandemic, 3 million girl children are out of education. The largest single shock in modern civilization, they say, because there is no internet for them. So we are no question that there should be girls' education. But that education comes at a price. That education is the mainstream education which we give the girls. What about the boys' education? When a boy has to be educated to respect a girl, to take a girl by his side in his projects in school, in his dramas in school, in his dancing in school, and then to think that she is not a chattel to be molested. She is a human being to be respected. So I would say that the catchphrase should be Beta Padhao, Beti Bachao. If the boys understand this, the girls will be automatically saved. This is what I taught my son, for example, that he has to respect every girl in his class, in his school, and his college, and his university, and his office. And I think he has grown differently. Now we have comics. Superman is in the comics, but not Superwoman. Batman and Batwoman are just coming up. They say that in Wisconsin University, there was a club, the Club for Literary People, because it was mainly meant for the literature. And there was a Wranglers and Stranglers Society. The Wranglers were the women. The Stranglers were the men students. So what happened was that when they discussed any topic, the women discussed, they debated, they disagreed. But the men strangled one another. And hence it's called the Wranglers and the Stranglers. Today, there are female authors like me. Some of the female authors go under pseudonyms because they feel that if they show the girl's name, the book won't sell. And one publisher, one author who has published her books in India, she says that if they know that a woman has written the book, you will get a cover page with stilettos, no matter what the subject matter. Some are called chicklets when they write literature, but men are not called anything lits. Now, a completely different side of the spectrum. There were some women who said that they wanted to work for other women, and that was functional literacy. So they had various functional literacy camps, and they chose the time suitable to you, suitable to them, just as, let us say, you have chosen a time suitable to you, which is suitable to me also. They chose 4 p.m. in the evening to give education to illiterate women who are domestic workers, etc., on functional literacy. Most of the women did not come. So they said that, we are working for you and you don't come. They said, but ma'am, you called us at 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, we get water in our taps. So we have to fill water at home. These are the gender perspectives which are not known, seen, understood, or debated upon. It is then that the women thought how important time was to domestic workers and how much work they would have done. While we were conducting paralegal training when I was much younger, about at least 40 years ago, we used to do this paralegal trainings for laborers, for society people, etc., in various, not slums really, but sort of, let us say, middle class, lower middle class societies. And we came to know that most of the women said that they were beaten up by their men. And one woman got up and told us, Madam, हम लोग भूल करें और वो मारे तो हम समझ सकते हैं, लेकिन हम भूल ना करें और फिर भी मारे तो हम क्या बोले? So we had to tell them that, look, they cannot beat you even if you make a mistake. They can guide you, they can at best get angry with you, but they cannot beat you just because they are your husband or your father-in-law or anybody like this. So we had a little activity for them. We gave them one paper and a pencil, and we said, write down whatever you do during the course of a day. So they wrote many things about how they wash clothes and how they cook food and what they do, etc., and about the children and going to school and ironing clothes and all of those. There were about 12, 14 such items. Then we told them, turn the page. Now write down whatever your husband does during the course of a day. So some just gazed at us in amazement as to what they can do. Husbands go to work, that's all. So we said, okay, after coming from work, what do they do? Do they have dinner? What do they do? So somebody said he watches TV. Somebody said he reads newspaper. One woman said that he packs tiffin for my children when they go to school. One woman said that he irons their clothes. There were several such answers, and they wrote down on that paper. We allowed them to keep that paper and told them that next time your husband beats you, show him this paper and tell him that these are the things that you do and these are the things that he does. Now, even if you have made a mistake, should he beat you up? And we could see the amazement on their face, like it is something that can be done. They thought that it could not be done. Now let's go to another perspective. I worked at one time with on a conference with the United Nations Population Fund. And when we were discussing that we should have one or only two children, and of course we do in our society now, luckily, there are millions of people who don't know this, who don't think this, and which women are made to bear again and again and again children because they don't get a son, and quite often even after they get a son. Now, when the woman comes for delivery, the doctors from the United Nations Population Fund who work for the delivery, they remember these women. And what these women do, they get fake ration cards to show that this is their first delivery, because they are allowed to have 2 deliveries. And so that they will have again another delivery, they show a fake ration card without the child's name. But the doctors told us that they come hardly after a year, and therefore they remember them, but there is no proof with the doctors. Now, this is how women in our society accept their position, even when we work for them and we give them those avenues to show that, you need not do that. Now, she could have been sterilized, which would be much better than getting yet another child. But she goes away with one child, and the doctors say that it must be her second, even her third child. This is how there's a rule for the government servants that if you have 3 children, you cannot get government accommodation. Now, this is a very gender just rule. But there are so many men who give by way of exceptions because they are bosses. They give by way of exception the no objection to having the accommodation, even when he has 2 or 3 or 4 children. Now, another completely different perspective in an office. We all work together, men and women in one room. But have you noticed that the ACs in the office are calibrated to the temperatures of men? Women generally feel that these ACs make the room more cold than they would want. Men don't feel that. That is because of their own metabolism. But that's the way it is. Even the heights of the tables and chairs in the offices are calibrated for the height of men. And when a woman officer sits in a cabin and is given the chair and the table will have to be modified. This happened also in NASA. They had a space repair program and they were going to send women there. But at the last minute, they could not send because the space suits were made for men and they had to be altered for the women. But when women were sent into space and research was done on their performance, they found that because of their biological difference, because of their menstruation, etc., they are better suited to be in space in zero gravity. And now NASA has decided that every space mission shall have at least one woman. And I would say that is to take care of men even in space. But back home, another perspective. Do you know that we have got so many skyscrapers and so many flats? It is in Mumbai, it must be in Calcutta also. And even the elitist flats don't necessarily have a servant's quarter. Now, this architecture is also gender-based. That also is made and planned with the male as a main member of the family in view. But women today go to work. Women today come home late. They are educated. They are officers and all sorts of things. They do not have time to cook. They need a maid. And they have the problems when a maid does not come. The men goes to work. The women stay back at home because they are the caregivers for their children. And they have to be home early when the children come from school if the maid doesn't come from school. Now consider the architecture. If every flat has even a small servant's quarter and it is going to belong to the owner only, whoever, the man or the woman, it is not going to belong to the maid. She is not going to have tenancy rights. She is not going to have a license to stay forever. She cannot claim adverse possession. I'm talking these things from law, and maybe you don't follow this, but she is not going to have any right over it, let us say. The right completely remains with the owners. But if she has got this roof over her head, there are so many women who are thrown out of their house because the husband drinks and doesn't want, or he wants dowry and he doesn't want the woman. These are the women who need a shelter. We are the women who need the maids. And see the matchmaking and the partnership, if it can come about, if you have even a very small accommodation for women where they can be placed. But our architecture does not take care of all these needs. We have got offices, and offices are women and men, and they are treated equally as well as unequally. So let's understand how equally and unequally they are treated. BBC had women journalists who did the same work as men, but who were paid differently and who were paid less. We have got Equal Remuneration Act. So our government servants and everyone in the corporate sector get equal pay for equal work. But there are so many millions of women in the unorganized sector, farm hands, etc. They do not get the same pay as the men get. We had a very striking case of tea estates. And you will have so many tea estates around Darjeeling, etc. You will realize that women generally pluck the tea leaves with their nimble fingers. Men cart them away. Men were paid more. Though the women's job was more artistic and was more crafty. They said that these are different works and therefore they are paid differently. But there was an argument that if they were paid differently, women should have been paid more. There are trade unions where women trade unionists have done very well. They have seen that between the capital and labor, there is more conciliation because they think of health, education, and all of these things. Even amongst the IAS officers, Earlier, the IAS women officers were given training, they were put in charge of healthcare, etc. They would not get the assignment of, let us say, defense or nuclear power. And there was a case where the principal secretary would have been a woman in the defense sector. And they did not appoint her until the other man retired. And then they appointed another man. So these are the politics in our society. Today we have got an all India female crew of Air India. We have got an all India solicitors firm. We have got an all women petrol station at Ladakh in Leh, where men prefer to come because the women are always there. There was a very nice story about a parking lot where women were employed. And then it was realized that the women inspectors were working so much more sincerely, whereas the men would smoke or have gutka, the women would work as soon as their lunch break was over, that they had the parking lot then only for women. We have today metro stations which are manned only by women. Jaipur was the first one, Cochin was there. In Bombay, we have got Matunga station, amongst other railway stations. We know that during COVID, women have done better than men and women have suffered more than men. Now, how does that happen? We have seen the heads of states, 5 countries, Finland, New Zealand, Taiwan, Germany, Norway, manned by women. They did better than their male counterparts. When it was told about Taiwan that it did so well, they said, oh, it's an island nation. But what happens to Germany? When Merkel led Germany, and she said, it is serious, take it seriously. And first, in all these countries, they did well. Jacinda Arminda of New Zealand started the lockdown when they had the very first case of COVID, and she contained it. Even in Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina did better than in India in the second wave and then in Pakistan. These are the women at the top. We have got today women at the top in the World Bank, in IMF, in many of the associations and organizations of the United Nations, even in the European Bank. But the head of European Bank, when she visited Turkey, she was made to sit on a sofa with the others. She was not given her due. And this was in 2021. Now, in COVID, women work from home. But how do they work from home? Women have got other duties to perform before they come on their desk. And they cannot come on their desk at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Their children come home, etc. Even in Columbia University and even in UK universities, the researchers who were women could submit lesser articles and publications in COVID than men. And men submitted more than they did earlier because they worked from home and they had no other work. But now this work from home and work at home are the two things which must be considered for COVID. When we have women in universities in various sectors, yes, we have them. But how are they treated? Even to go home during the lockdown, in the trains, women were treated differently. And this was not actual patent treatment. It was intangible. It just had to be that women could not come out of their homes and go in those crowded buses, which were very few when the trains were not working, because they had to run home. So even in transport, it makes a difference for women. Now, this requires preferential treatment. Now, we have got in trains a compartment for women, for example, to equalize, because women cannot travel with men in those very crowded suburban trains. In a Gram Panchayat office where there is no toilet, how does it affect anyone? It doesn't affect the men. It affects only the women because they actually have health problems because they do not go to urinate during the entire day. In China, women are made to wear diapers when they are working in factories because they are not allowed to get up and go. These are the things which go on for women even in their pensions, for example. Now, women generally take up part-time jobs, or quite often, at least for a certain time in their life, when they get married and they have children and they are caregivers, or when they have old parents, it is the women who are basic caregivers. And therefore, they choose to have a job which gives them more free time and less salary. They accept that. Even in the universities in UK, there is this job discrimination and salary discrimination because they say that women don't come for permanent assignments. But they can't come for permanent assignments. And that affects them even in their pensions because pensions are given essentially to permanent employees. You see, even in healthcare, the woman suffers because the woman has to manage here and there, and she doesn't have the finances to take vitamin tablets and all that, which generally men do more effectively. You may think that women are discriminated only in our kind of societies. Please consider what will be the woman's position in the war zone. In the wars, in all the wars, women are disproportionately treated. They are raped, sexually abused, taken as slaves. They are used as terrorist shields today. Even children are taken, even for finding out mines, children have been sacrificed. This happens in all societies, in all countries, and in all wars. No soldier is an exception. The United Nations peacekeeping force had so abused the women and allowed some of the officers and others in Bosnia to abuse that there is a film called Whistleblower. It is absolutely amazing. It is an eye-opener on how women can be treated in the war zone. But women have yet come out the winner even there by their own steam. In Bosnia, when there was the war, they had 1 hour of relaxation of curfew. The women said that their work does not get over in 1 hour. They have to go to the river to wash clothes. They have to go to the woods to collect firewood, etc., etc. And therefore, they demanded 2 hours. It was given. Then they demanded 3 hours. It was given. Then they demanded 4 hours. It was given until the war was for 1 hour and the relaxation was for 5 hours. In Somalia, there was a war between tribes. There was a big armed conflict and they could not agree. The women sat outside the presidential palace and locked up the palace, the hotel rooms and palace, whatever it was, they locked it up. And they told the men, be there until you sign the peace treaty or call us in. We will be able to sign the peace treaty. In another country, in Africa, the women said, no sex without.
Mrs.
Ma'am,
Dalvi, you are.
Ma'am, you got muted. You've got muted. Ma'am, just unmute yourself, please. Yes, yes.
Is it okay?
Yes, yes. Just get your video on.
No. Okay, sorry. Where was I? Did I tell you about Somalia?
You were just talking about Somalia when this went
Okay,
on.
fine. So in Somalia, the
Ma'am,
women
you
said,
need your video on also.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. I can't see myself.
We also can't see you, ma'am.
1 minute. Just give me a minute.
Yes.
Switch on your camera, please.
Ruby? I can't move ahead. I'm on video
There's a
is
small
stopped.
video seen on the toolbar.
Ah.
Just see.
Okay, is that so?
Yes, 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 ma'am.
Okay, fine.
You're visible.
So in Somalia, when there was an armed conflict between two tribes, the women told the men at the presidential palace that we will not allow you to get out. They closed the doors until they said, you bring peace. Because women cried and said, what is the future of our children? And they said, you can let us in and we will see that there is peace. In another African country, a woman said, no sex until peace. Every woman agreed not to have sex with their men, and the men brought about some peace. Now, these are various perspectives. I'm taking you through war and peace. But what is peace? Peace is not only the absence of war. Peace is absence of any structural violence. And that structural violence may be for any of the victims in the society, even men when they are victims. But more so, it is for women and children. When I give my lectures on law for women, I am attacked at times that Domestic Violence Act has been misused, etc. Yes, it could have been misused by some women. But if we see the actual physical domestic violence where women are burnt, the man lights a match and the mother throws kerosene and they run away and the woman is burnt. And in the burn wards of hospitals, there are so many women who die of septicemia. That is the real domestic violence. This gender-based violence may be in the homes or maybe outside. Gender-based violence is all pervasive. It is sexual abuse, sexual assault on children, rape, gang rape, trafficking of girls and women. It may be sexual harassment at the workplace, all sorts of things where women are at the receiving end. But I would like to tell you even some of the things that have been done for women and mainly for women. In Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince has now made various changes in the laws. 4 laws have been changed to give women better and equal rights, though dissent is not yet allowed. A very nice initiative was in Africa, in West Africa, where they have made hydro panels to create water so that girl children do not go into the forest to get water or into the riverside to get water. Because when they were going there, they were getting molested. And with these hydro panels, they have drinking water for the day because Africa has got a lot of sun, a lot of heat, and the hydro panels work very well. In fact, that could be a great thing for climate change also throughout the world. And in any of the drought-prone countries like India also, it could work very well. But this has been a gender perspective. In Kenya, there are women marrying women. And I'm not talking about lesbianism. I'm not talking about sex and love. I am talking about care. There are old women who have no children. And there are other women who have many children or who are left or who are widowed at a young age. These two women come together and make a family. This is a very new perspective, which is in Kenya, which one British officer, British educationist has found out when she worked in Kenya. Another perspective, let us say from Afghanistan. They built various wells for women because women go out to fetch water. And then NGOs thought that there are so many mines and women do get killed also, but they go out to fetch water and they built wells near their residential places. The women broke up those wells. They wanted to go far to fetch water because that was the only social meeting that they would have with other women in the days of Taliban. After the Taliban went and when Americans took over, women education improved even in Afghanistan. There are, of course, women musicians, there are university professors, there are ministers, there are consulate generals, all women are there. Now they've got partition in their universities also. And we do not know what is the position of those women in universities, etc. In Pakistan and China, there is a lot of trafficking of Pakistani Christian girls. There is that border road which China is building. And because of that road, many Chinese come into Pakistan. They take away the Pakistani women on the pretext of marriage, but then they are trafficked into prostitution. This is international prostitution. In Vietnam, which had prostitution and which had a lot of child and women labor, they have started an initiative called We the Women. And in We the Women, they allow women to stitch and to give them certain trainings in various things to make them stand on their own 2 feet. In Poland, some schools called for certain children to be taken for certain camps. And they realized there's not a single boy in so many classes. They have got a completely girl education, girl population. Now, any population which is so lopsided is not good. In Haryana, we have a very skewed sex ratio. And with the result that they now have to purchase brides from Bengal, Bihar, Madras, Orissa, etc. These are called paro. Paro means far away. So they are treated as faraway brides only to beget children. And they are not treated well. In Kerala, on the other hand, women have their own properties. They have their own freedom in the matriarchal society. And wife beating, etc., is much less. The initiatives of agriculture, of education are far more because women are treated equally. And they say that in all societies which sort of discriminate against women, the government discriminates against everyone. And we can see that strong and clear in the Taliban Afghanistan today. Now, I don't know if I have really crossed the limit, but I have given you various perspectives in society and in law. I was told also, what about the seniors? There's not much to talk about seniors except that the senior position is today under the legislative enactment very secure. If a senior has got his own property and his own income, then of course there is no question, he cannot be maintained. But he or she, grandmother, grandfather, mother, father, anyone can be maintained by children, grandchildren, and any relative who can be an heir to this. Now, let us say, for example, an old woman doesn't have children, doesn't have a husband, she's a widow, she has some nephew. Then the nephew becomes the relative who will be taking her estate if she had a lot of estate. He would be responsible. It is a legislation which gives a very bright and a very broad perspective. But the thing is, do those women know that they can access justice there? There is a tribunal made for that purpose. Where there is no tribunal, you can go to the family court. If there is no family court, you go to the magistrate's court. You can get an order of maintenance, an order of injunction if there is any violence. And if there is domestic violence case, because somebody has, say, beaten up an old woman or something, she can go to the magistrate's court and ask for maintenance from her children or her grandchildren. This is the basic law. Now, the laws in, say, America and England are far more. They've got the freedom pass, they've got various passes to travel. There is a Republican Act in America. All those things we do not have. But under our Constitution, under Article 41, which talks of dignity, respect, and personal integrity of everyone, the old women and the old men also, for their dignity and personal integrity, there is this law. If you want, you can ask me questions so I can answer on this law. And I hope with these perspectives, you would understand the real position of women her trials, her triumphs. My book is in print. It will be coming out. I'm not come here today to sell the book, but to sell the idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan. That
Thank you.
was moving all over the world, understanding gender perspectives. But to begin with, I have a question.
Yes.
You know, we have heard enough. We are a free country for 75 years. And in this progressive world, how much more are women going to withstand so much of discrimination?
See,
is
there is
Is it
there
the
is
government,
going to be discrimination.
media to help us?
There is discrimination everywhere. We feel we are 75 years old. We are actually a young nation. But even in America, which is 200 and odd years old, there is still discrimination. One woman who was fighting like you and me was asked, for how long are you going to talk about discrimination and how long are you going to fight? And she said, until all the incompetent women get the jobs that all the incompetent men have today got. You understand the perspective? That it is a
That's a
universal
revelation.
phenomenon. It is each one of us has to make some kind of a progress for himself or herself and for one more person. And it will take time. But we have come very far. We still have a very long way to go. We are talking always about employment, you know. How many, now they're talking about judges. How many judges? And they're talking about parliamentarians. How many parliamentarians? So many percentage, 30%, 50%. But what happens after they are employed? Are they treated well? I'll give you one illustration. We have got judges. We have male judges and female judges. And when they are young judges, they are at the lowest rung of the judiciary. They come up for probation. And after the probation period, they come up for confirmation. Now, during that period, they are usually recently married because they are young magistrates, etc., who are taken into the judicial force. Now, when they come up for their confirmation, the men, after 6 months, can give many judgments to show that they are ready for confirmation. But women may have gone into maternity leave and they cannot show the number of judgments that the men can show. Now, they do not get the seniority because they are not confirmed. They have to wait still more. Then they come up for confirmation at the next time. So it takes another 6 months to 1 year, and then they are confirmed. Now, this is discriminatory. There is no point only appointing magistrates or appointing women, but you have to give them a level playing field. And what is that level playing field? It is not only equality, but it is equity. There are two people. One is tall and one is short. And you have to make them equal. So you put a box and make the short man stand on it. That is equity. But if you're going to treat both of them equally and make them stand where they are, it is equality. But there is no equity and there is no justice. These are the perspectives that must be understood. The latent things which people don't talk about. They only talk about employment. They talk about domestic violence. They talk about rape. But what about actual in-house dignity of a woman? That is important.
Purabhi, will you take the questions?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, is there somebody called Happy Rain here? Who's Happy Rain? I don't have the name, but there is one Happy Rain who has asked a couple of questions which are relevant. Anyway, I'll just read out. Ma'am, 1 minute. It says
Is it
that
Rashmi?
no, Rashmi is there with a name. Women of all profession are getting harassed at workplace. They are often catcalled, mocked, nicknamed, and commented upon on their way of dressing. What should be done to stop it? Is there any law to protect women? Is it not obvious that it is because of the ill upbringing of men and their background? Why does it take so many years to take action on a man who is found guilty in rape and sexual abuse? Why are there why is there Human Rights Commission to save the accused life when there was no law to safeguard a female when she was in distress. There's one more question she has said. With the discrimination against women to such an extent, how then can we bring about a more egalitarian society? Is it an impossible dream?
Well, there are too many questions. We go with the first
Yes.
one. POSH, we call it, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. Now, the legislation is there, the act is there. You have to take that act and you have to take your law and have access to justice. Yes, there are catcalls, etc., which is a very mild of the sexual harassments that are. There are very many worse sexual harassments. The only thing is that it may be difficult to prove. Each woman has to see how he or she can prove a case that she makes. Because when you go to a court of law, everything depends on proof. It doesn't depend on these kind of lectures which I'm giving now at all. It opens minds, but after that, you have to have the proof. Even for rape, yes, it takes a lot of time. What happens is, there are thousands upon thousands of crimes, thousands upon thousands of cases coming to court. Every time I've been asked this question, no matter what subject I'm talking about, as to why there is so much of delay, it is because a judge can take up one matter at one time. A judge can never take up two matters together. You see? So everyone contributes to the delay. Everyone is responsible. And yes, there is discrimination and it would go a long way. The first thing is to have in-house teaching. Parents, teachers, counselors in the school. First thing is that you must imbibe in the child the dignity of a human being. And yes, these are human rights violations. There is human rights law. The human rights law deals with victimology. It is for the victims to access that law. And there is National Human Rights Commission. There is also State Human Rights Commission in every state. There is a Women and Child Department in every state. There is a Mahila and Shishu desk in every police station. So we have got the infrastructure. We have to now make use of the infrastructure and make it known to everyone.
Ma'am, there's one more question from Vandana, Dr. Vandana Parashar. She says, what is to be done to challenge the right to will in a patriarchal society that kills the right of equality with one stroke?
You see, a will is the will of the person. It may be a bad will or a good will, but it is his will. It is his wish. And when a person owns an asset, he can do whatever he wants with that asset. Now, I own a house. I can burn my house if I want. So when I own my house, I can bequeath it to a beggar if I want. I can bequeath it to my neighbor if I want. There is no bar at all. That is the one law which has no bar. It is a revocable document. Every day you can make a new will. You know, yes, there are wills which smack of patriarchy, but that is how a mindset is. So at the fag end of somebody's life, when he has made the will and died, and when that will has to be honored, it has to be honored as per its rules, as per its words. That is the law. But our law, the intestate law, which is not testamentary law, which doesn't deal with wills, especially the Muslim law, especially the Hindu law, which is the Hindu Succession Act, is a very egalitarian law. When a man dies, his wife, children, and mother share equally. Superb. When a woman dies, her husband and children share equally. But if she does not have a husband, if she's a widow, and if she does not have children, because she's not born children, then her estate goes first to the husband's family and then to her own family, which is discriminatory. I have held that law is gender discriminatory, and I have set it aside as unconstitutional. But it goes on in certain other states. Now I've got a consultancy where this kind of a law is made applicable. So that law
So
is there.
one
But
more,
generally, it is very equitable.
So Justice Delvi, I have one more question related to this, that we can't change the right to will, because yes, it is empowerment. So whosoever is, executing or whosoever is,
Yes.
using that power, but the same time, the urban women, You talked about the women, rural, woman who is deprived and other. But when urban woman, he wants to, or she wants to go somewhere and wants to take a loan, they ask for some kind of, they have to keep with the bank. From where they'll get this? So many of them are not entrepreneurs just because of this.
You're right, absolutely right.
we-
But yet,
Should we advocate at this point regarding the, say, some remuneration for homemakers or some remuneration for women as in general or
Fine.
some unemployment goal? What do you say?
I'll answer. Remuneration, the question is who will pay? The state would have to pay
Yeah.
because the husband doesn't pay. Because if the husband pays, everything is fine. Yes, a woman's dignity has to be maintained. And even in an accident case today, a woman has been given compensation of 33 lakhs on the ground that though she was not working at all and could not show any income, she has value for her children, for her husband. And the Supreme Court has said that that value has to be quantified. That is one aspect. The second thing is, you said, what did you say in the beginning? That a will can be made, but the thing is always the creation of the sensitization of people. So if a man is sensitized enough, he would not make a very patriarchal kind of will. He would give equally to his son and as he would give to his daughters. There are many men who do that today. There are many men who give daughters even more.
But
of
if you
course,
see
there are
the
men who do-
percentage, Justice Elvi, then hardly 1%, I'll say. So,
You may
you
say
know,
hardly
getting
1%. I will not give percentages because
Yeah.
I'm not a statistician. And I don't know how many percent there
I
are, but I know
understand.
about
Chalo,
cases that
things have
come to court.
started changing, which is
Yeah, that's a
important,
good.
Vandana ji.
Yeah. I'm really,
Yeah.
that's why I said we should start a movement from
Yes.
Iswa, something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Now
Yes,
the
we can. Of course, we can.
The next question is from Bala Meenakshi, who is saying, what do you think are the important articles of law to be taught to the girl students regarding their rights through which they can help other uneducated women like maids around them?
The very first is our constitution. Our constitution gives equal rights. There is no discrimination on the ground of sex in the constitution. In fact, in the constitution, there can be laws made in favor of women and children, which is what the girls must understand right from the beginning. They must understand basic laws of contract, of how they can take care of their own finances, of the right to education, which is today a constitutional fundamental right, of the right of equality, etc. Then they must also understand and they must be taught what are the crimes against women and how to prevent them. Like, they say a
Yes.
good touch and a bad touch for children. And therefore, counseling of children in the school is important.
Very important.
But while you are teaching girls, please don't make the mistake of not teaching boys. You have to teach the boys to treat the girls equally. Even in dancing, for example, in the waltz, what is the moral? The moral is that when a woman and a man dance together in folk dances, for example, they learn to respect one another in the different poses that they make for dancing. So in our ancient times, they were saying that the schools were always for boys and girls together, even if they went under the tree. And that school went on. Boys and girls studied together. It is only later that, not only in India, even in America, it happened. Even in America, the Red Indians had all these women's rights. And when the Britishers and the Westerners came, then they took off the male rights. Even in religions, it has happened that way. In all the religions, it is taught that everyone is equal and all. Religions don't teach this kind of discrimination. It is the politics of the men that have brought that by way of religion. So everywhere you must understand the root cause of this trouble.
Rashmi ji, you wanted to ask something? Gomati, 1 second. I'll give the floor to you. Just 2 minutes. Rashmi ji, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, good evening to everyone and good evening, madam. My question relates to the,
Rashmi, louder, please.
okay, my question, madam, relates to the statement made by the Chief Justice of India that women should shout, those are the actual words, women should shout for 50% reservation. So first thing is, I would like your take on that. And second, rather than reservation for women, I personally feel that rather than reservation, what we need is relaxation, because women are biologically different, women are emotionally different, and women have far more responsibilities. So rather than reservation for women, even if there is a reservation, I would think that many women do not want to join the judiciary, either for so many reasons. So rather than reservation, can we fight for relaxation, which could be discriminatory in favor of the women, but I think we deserve that.
See, I appreciate that women must be appreciated, their work must be appreciated. In fact, one of the perspectives that we found when I did my research was, even in offices, when both men and women come up for, what is it called, come up for consideration or something like that, the men are treated on the basis of their potential, and the women are given preferences on the basis of past performance, which means that a woman must first perform, prove, and then only she can be considered. But a man, on his potential, he can be taken in. That is the real research that has happened. Now that must go, and therefore the woman's innate qualities, and there are many merited women, must be considered. But I would personally not favor any kind of reservation, and especially in the big sectors, there should be only on merit. But the thing is, when you say only on merit, then merit is not that I like your nose. That merit is that I like your innate ability. That must be seen. That is not seen. Therefore, they say that keep some, so that you have to keep, and therefore you keep. Now in Germany, in England, there are board women on the board. There is a reservation, what we call reservation. They have women on the board that way. And in India, when it came, what they said was that even when there are women on the board, when she becomes a director in a company, the husband calls the shots. But even if that happens, it is a first good step. I'll tell you about the milk scheme in Rajasthan. That is a very nice initiative. They started a milk scheme for the women. This is for women who actually milk the cows and then sell the milk. So it was meant to be only for women. And the men put in their wives, their mothers, their daughters' names, but they were doing everything. And the women said, what is the use of this kind of a scheme? It is meant for women, but they allowed it. And after some time, you see what happens is it is in the name of the wife. The husband does everything. But when the money comes into the bank and has to be withdrawn, the wife has to put her thumb impression or she has to sign. So after some time, the wife says, I'm not going to put the thumb impression. Show me what is the bank account. So this also gives empowerment. So this is how you see the innate qualities. Now, so far as something like a judgeship of the Supreme Court is concerned, we must have the very best of India. And there are only 31 judges out of the population of 1.40 billion. So, I mean, there's just no way out otherwise. But there are women who can cope, who can become, and this is meant to keep a balance. Because women and men always working together produce good results. Even when we sit on the bench, when I have sat on the bench with my brother judges, I have found that I bring in some new perspective, he brings in some new perspective, and we do it. It may not be only a gender matter. It may be a matter relating to, say, finance, for example. But how a scam takes place also, we see things differently. And that is really why women should be there everywhere, on the boards, in the courts, everywhere.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. There is one more question which I think is no longer relevant. That she's saying that for medical operations, your signatures of father, husband, or son is still to be taken. I don't think that is any more relevant. I think you can still take the signature of your mother or your sister. Or
Even in investments, that was the Gita Hariharan case where a mother invested for the child, and Reserve Bank of India said, no, you get the father's signature. Mother said, I'm doing everything, it's my money. She went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court read down the law of guardianship. Father is the first natural guardian, okay, first legal guardian, and after him, the mother. So the Supreme Court said after him doesn't mean after his lifetime or after his death. After him means in his absence. So whenever a father is absent, the mother automatically becomes a guardian. Now, when a child has to be taken to the hospital from the school, for example, meets with an accident, whom do they contact first? They contact the mother first. I was contacted for my child first, and I took him, and I had to give the consent. You see, but of course, consent is taken, but this is how the law has developed. It was because the father is the guardian of the child. Now, when there are two people, naturally the law will put one person as the guardian and the second person as the second person.
I think I'll hand over the mic to Gomati now. Gomati, please unmute yourself and you can ask your questions and then give the vote of thanks, please. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Madam Roshan Dalvi. I think I'm going to take a minute off first to say hi on a personal note, because I was the principal of your son's school at the Bombay International School.
Oh, yes.
When he was there.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and there's one more person in the audience, Nandita Singh, who was the primary headmistress when your son was there in school. So you have two BIS
yes.
members today, and I'm so pleased and privileged to be part of this hearing. It's been extremely instructive and a great food for thought. One question I wanted to ask was, recently we found out, senior citizens, that the discount and concession that was being given to travel in trains has been pulled out. And that, I think, is like pulling the carpet from under your feet at an advanced age. This was such a good thing for senior citizens to be able to travel, to relax, go some places with groups of friends who belong to that senior group. And the cost of it was so easy to bear. But now we can't do that. And can this really be called a legal act by a government that has pulled out or gone recessed by what a previous government had done to give concessions to senior citizens to travel? 50% was what we got on train tickets. I think it is a very atrocious act that this kind of concession has been pulled out.
It is indeed like that, but these are policy decisions.
Yes.
And every government makes policy decisions. And in so many countries, like in America as well as in India, one government does something, the other government will reverse it, because they want to show that they have reversed it. This is one such. It may even come back again after COVID. At present, yes, it is not there. And that's what I said, that in America, they have all this freedom pass and they have concessions after 62 or things like that. In India, we don't have much of those. But I think Air India gives 30% concession to seniors.
Yes, that is true.
Yes, I think, Gomati, if I can just say a word, I think the policy makers at the helm of affairs, they need to understand women's perspectives and put it down as laws so that the protection and the security of women are there. However much we we do teach our boys also, that is a part of training, but the policy makers and the decision makers are the real players.
They have not been taught by their parents and in those days.
See, professional women, when they retire, professional women, when they retire, they look forward to a time where with their pensions or whatever they have been able to save up, can do a little bit of traveling. Their children are all old, settled now. They can take a little time off. And then when you find it hurts you to buy tickets and travel, then I find it extremely, I would say, an act of violence almost.
That is their only recreation at the later age.
Yes. And I was also thinking that that was one of the questions I had written in the chat box. With all this kind of discrimination, and of course you gave the various perspectives of it and the scope for improvement, but can an egalitarian society come about?
Of course it can. Of course it can. In our lifetime, it can come about. It is only that each one of us will have to make it.
Exactly.
That's a big question.
We have to make it for those have-nots who don't have that kind of understanding or empowerment.
But can't empowerment be brought upon by yourself, by your own, perhaps an aggressive attitude that we have enough is enough? As they say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is what so many women are doing. There are so many initiatives for women, not only aggressive, even mild, which have gone very far. But yet there is a lot to be done.
That should begin from home.
Yes.
That should begin from home.
Absolutely.
And
in
as you
schools.
said, madam, in the schools, you see, we are responsible as teachers to give that kind of training to boys and girls equally, that you are equal, you both have the same potential. There's no,
Absolutely.
and the respect for one another should be there in the classroom itself.
Correct.
Gomatri, go ahead with the vote of thanks.
Yes. So with this wonderful evening, Madam Dalvi, I think we have all been enriched by your expertise in the field of law and gender equality. And as you said, there is such a great difference between the two words equality and equity. And you use the same kind of words I always use myself, a leveled playing field. That is the most important to run a race, because you have to include those who are disabled as well. So thank you very much. I thank our president, Dr. Ranjana Banerjee, for having brought this evening as a great event for this time of COVID, when, and here in Calcutta, we are all in the midst of a kind of a cyclonic weather, and everything is now literally at a standstill. We can't even come out of our houses because of the heavy rains. So, and I sent a message to Ranjana earlier in the evening to say, I'm so glad that it is a Zoom meeting, because had it been a normal time, we would all be anxious as to how we would get to the venue where this would be held with the heavy rains around us.
And that is where I answered you.
Yes, everything. You have to look at the positive side of everything.
And my personal thanks to Purabhi for organizing and getting me in touch with you, madam. Roshan, I'm really thankful to you for this evening's wonderful delivery.
Now we are friends.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you, ma'am. And
Thank
let me know what Farhad is doing these days.
Farhad is now the director of research as a financial analyst. He does corporate research.
They're in Bombay.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Principal of his school.
Can I see him? Can I
Yes.
see?
No, Farhad is not here, but my husband is here.
Oh, maybe.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Yeah, nice seeing you after a long time.
Good evening. Now I know you
Hello,
both
Mrs.
sitting
Singh.
at the AGM of our BIS school. I can recognize you both.
Yes, and I can recognize Miss Singh now that you say that she's here. I just saw her fleetingly. Yes.
Mrs. Dalvi, I must say,
This has been a great meeting place.
yes.
After so many years.
The past and the present.
If I can put in a word, I'd say that not only must you be proud of Farhad, but Farhad had made us very proud. Do convey that.
Okay, thank you.
What
Well, I'll
wonderful
tell him.
achievement.
I'll tell him that I met you. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Before we close down,
all of you.
Gomati
Thanks,
ji,
Sister,
it
for
has
joining.
stopped
It
raining.
was
It's not
possible.
so bad. I was out the whole afternoon. It's not so bad.
Oh.
It's not even waterlogged in our part of the city.
Oh.
And there is
Thank God. I think good
rain in
things
Delhi.
happen when good people get together. Thank you so much.
Send some rains here. Delhi is totally dry.
Oh God. Bombay is
Kolkata is
somewhere in
bad.
between.
Yeah.
Kolkata is bad. Okay.
Anyway.
Good night and thank you,
Good
everybody.
night,
Thanks,
everybody.
friends. Thanks for
you.
wonderful
Good night.
session.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Lovely seeing
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
madam. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Purabhi.
ma'am.
Bye. Can I close the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Roshan.
Bye. Good night. Good night.